as I was reading some of the works of E.V. Ramaswamy Naik. E.V. Ramaswamy says that Aryans were barbarians, they came and invaded, and they were all drunk, intoxicated, they were dancing and singing, and that song they imagined all these things that happened in Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are all intoxicated songs of these drunken barbarians. Europeans said, no, since there was no Saraswati, there is nothing. Now this, first of all, when I say decolonize, let us stop calling it Indus civilization. Can't we call it Saraswati Sindhu civilization? Is it not a fact? If it is a fact, then let us accept it, let us call it. In our own country, here in this very land, we have a Dravid ideology that believes in that Aryan and Dravidian separate races. Groundwork was done by Caldwell, Robert Caldwell, who wrote the book. Absolutely anyone with a critical eye will read it and will find it's all nonsense. Grammar of Dravidian languages. Dravidian languages, not only Tamil, all Dravidian. But over the time, rest of the Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada, they have moved away. They have no problem. Somehow here ideology is limited to here. They say no, we are a separate, linguistically a separate group. We have nothing to do with the rest. And then race, Dravid separate race, Aryan separate race. These lies have created a political ecosystem which is threatening the unity and integrity of our nation. The first assault was by the Europeans. For them it was a necessity. In the middle of the 19th century, by then, Europe had almost colonized the whole world, barring Soviet Russia. Before it became Soviet, Tsar was a powerful person. He could resist. Tsar himself was an imperial power. Japan and part of China. Rest of the world was colonized by Europeans. Entire America, north, south. The whole of Africa was colonized, and the whole of whole of Asia, except Japan, part of China, and Soviet Russia, the whole world, they had colonized it. All kinds of atrocities were happening. They needed a justification for imperialism. They needed a moral and intellectual argument to justify what they were doing. And I would urge the students to listen it carefully. They needed a moral and intellectual argument to justify imperialism capturing the whole world, annihilating the native people of America, annihilating the people of Australia, colonize the world, suppressing the whole world. And in the quest of that, they came up with two arguments. One, of course, they said, the moral justification, they said, it was to spread the gospel because the rest of the world was in darkness. So they needed to do that. But other argument which they found was, which began with the 1853, when they came up with race theory. Arthur Comte de Gobineau, he wrote 4 volumes, Inequality of Races. He created the first intellectual argument that there are 3 races in the world, white, yellow, and black. And white is the superior race, is the master race. He came up with the argument that all these 3 races had inhabited the different parts of the globe and they immersed in their respective areas. But the white race was the superior race. It was handsome to look at, and it was intellectually the smartest. That unleashed a chain reaction of subsequent enterprises by so-called intellectuals. People started coming up with measuring the skull, what they called cephalic index, the length and the breadth of the skull. People with the vernier caliper, they started measuring the people. They did it here in our country. You go and see the records in the archives, what all they did, measuring which race you are, to find out races and sub-races. On the back of that came Darwin's theory, a hypothesis which they exalted to the level of a scientific fact. And what Darwin said, the smartest shall survive, and it is the destiny of the weak to perish. As simple as that. His theory of evolution is nothing else than to say that in the evolutionary process, it is the smarter one that survives, and not a smart, dumb one will perish. So perishing the dumb one was a natural, their natural destiny, nothing to worry about it. Now the race theory and the Darwin's evolution theory, which of course Darwin's cousin, Francis Galton, came up with the theory of cultivation of races, eugenics. All this is happening in 1850 onwards. That they must have the pure race. Then of course Nietzsche came up with Übermensch, superior man. And who was the superior man among, of course it was the white races. Now in this process, they justified occupying the rest of the world because they say those, in fact, Winston Churchill, when the annihilation was going on in Australia, natives were being killed. In America, of course, they had already completely annihilated them. When the questions were raised, Churchill is reported to have said, his most notorious quote, dog in the manger. You know what is manger? The big ball in which the cattle eat. He says, if the dog is sitting in the manger, that doesn't mean that manger belongs to the dog. It belongs to us. Race theory. So superior race, it was their destiny to rule the world, and others was to perish, to be subservient. This. While all this was happening, there was a German, Schliemann. This German was actually a businessman. He used to excavate places and used to dig up things and used to artifacts, old things, antiques, also gold and silver, and used to trade. While he was doing the excavations of city of Troy, we know the city of Troy, the battle of Iliad. He came up with large number of potteries and stuff with mark, what we call swastika. And he found that in different parts, so some other parts of the Europe also. And then he was wondering, what is this? It resembles to the gamma letter in Greek, part of it. And in the course of it, he wrote, one of the letters that he wrote was to Max Muller. His name we have all heard. What damage he has done. What distortion he has done. He was a professor of philology in Oxford, and he had studied Sanskrit. He had written more than 50 books, sacred texts of the East. So when Schliemann wrote to him also, what does it mean to try to make a sense of it? And then Max Muller responded in his letter that this is found mostly in Indian literature, Vedas and Indian scriptures, ancient scriptures, it is called swastika. And it is a sign of prosperity. First, he also said that it represents sun god. And then, this swastika was captured by this. Swastika came into being, they said. And then he used the word, maybe the Aryan nations have used this symbol, as he came with the Aryan as a nation, as a sign of prosperity. It got currency, Aryan. Never before Aryan as a race anywhere it appeared. None of our Indian literature, either Sangam literature nor the Vedic literature, they have used the word Aryan as a race. In fact, we have our own Tamil literature, more than 2,000, 2,500 years old. None of them have used the word Aryan as a race. None. We know in our literature, in our ancient Aryan, what is Aryan? Because why I am coming to this is, because this is linked with this. And I was disappointed, I must say, and I am not disappointed so much primarily because when we heard the computer scientists talking about our tradition, Tamar Bharni, and there is an Indus tradition of the north, it is out of ignorance, and it is not his fault. He is a scientist, computer scientist. But in the last 60, 70 years, Dravid ideology has created a narrative of the differences, the Aryan and Dravidian. Aryan as a race. I'm coming to that. How did the Aryan as a race theory come up? It emerged. It emerged out of compulsion of the Europeans first to find justification for imperialism controlling the whole world. So Max Muller used the word, or in the later response, Aryan nations could be using this as a symbol of prosperity and also the symbol to reflect God, sun god. It got currency. And in that background, later subsequently Hitler, you know how the Nazi party took up this superior race, when he Nazi, that's Übermensch, that superior man, master race. And there they came up, that the Aryans were the master race, and Germans were the pure Aryans. And they moved to different places. They also invaded India. When they got the documents showing that what an advanced civilization it was, they attributed it to the Aryans. But they say that races got contaminated with this, miscegenation, mixing the blood. But the pure one remained in Germany and neighboring Europe. Aryan as a race, Aryans invading India, it got so much into literature, so much into it, that we were all as a student, though in college I studied science, physics, but in school text we all learned this, how Aryan came from outside. Great people, well-known nationalists, great scholars could not escape this Aryan invasion theory because there was so much all around written about Aryan invasions all over. And in this, a lot of our own people also contributed. And I must say, a significant share also goes to archaeologists. They also have tried to come up with theories in support of that. Maybe because the ruling dispensation, why past is relevant? Why are we talking about Indus civilization today? Why past is relevant? If it is dead and gone, why? It is only academic interest, don't waste time on it. It is relevant because, first of all, this past is a living past. Because if more than 66 crore people went to Mahakumbh, How did they go? Who gave them the invite? Lakhs and lakhs of people from Tamil Nadu went. Nobody invited them. They went on their own. Railways had to run special trains. A living civilization. A living civilization. And this living civilization, which originated from there, it becomes important for us as a nation, as a Rashtra. And we must know about it. And I urge the scholars, please decolonize it. Our Prime Minister has given a call. And rightly so, the nation has a call now. One of the Panch Pranas, decolonize ourselves of the last vestiges of colonization. Remove the last vestiges of colonization. When I heard about Indus civilization, and I was hearing the feeble voice of Thiru Kalyanaman's Srinivasan, Saraswati Sindhu civilization. What is this Indus civilization, by the way? We know that this civilization was not just along the Sindhu river. First of all, as people here have difficulty calling Bharat, they have so much got India that they have difficulty calling Bharat. Though the people of this country for thousands of years never called it India. But our people will have difficulty. So similarly we say Indus. We have difficulty calling it Sindhu. Now is it a Sindhu civilization alone? Experts are sitting here. They will bear with out and they will discuss about it. This civilization grew along what we call Sapt Sindhu, Saraswati and Sindhu. Our Rig Veda, in the Nadi Shukta, it mentions about 10 rivers from Ganga to Sindhu. From Ganga to Sindhu, we have 10 rivers. And among them, the 7 rivers, which we call Sapt Sindhu. Sindhu, Satluj, Jhelum, Ravi, Chenab, Vyas, and Saraswati. These 7. This Saraswati doesn't exist today. And that made the critics of Indian civilization, because British had to downgrade our civilization. Because they had to say that we were in dark ages. They could not accept the fact that India was such a great civilization, notwithstanding the fact that at the time of colonization, British scholars had admitted how advanced was the India civilization. But that was in the later part of the 18th century, after the Battle of Plassey, when they started colonizing and capturing the territory. I'll just tell you one letter, how they have described India's civilization. When 1765, when they had taken over the control of Bengal de facto, large number of British scholars started visiting India. They started unearthing, looking into the India's past, and they were completely astounded. They were apprehensive that, like other places like America and other places and Latin America, these people went and destroyed the whole thing. Here, this will also be destroyed. So a group of professors from Edinburgh University wrote to the British government to commission large number of people to discover, collect, and translate the works of the ancient Hindus. This is the language used. Discover, find out where these are. Collect, take it, and translate. Because this will enrich European science and broaden European thought process. Anyone who has got curiosity, you can go into it. It was a March 19, if I remember correctly, 1788. Macnaughey was the professor of Edinburgh, who had written it to the British. He says, this will enrich European science and broaden the European thought process Remember, that was the time when Europe was in the so-called Renaissance, having an age of reason. They was talking about all the intellectualism and the preeminence of reason. So this will enrich the science and broaden the thought. And then they said, this will help us understand, mark the words, it is a McNaughey word, not mine. It will help us understand the celebrated people are Hindus, from whom Moses received his learning, and Greek their art and religion. Moses came 1,000 years before Jesus Christ. This was the admission of the British scholars at the time. But subsequently, at the beginning of the 19th century onward, when the need for consolidation of empire became preeminent, they suppressed that. And they started collecting all these and downgrading the Indian civilization, calling it even in dark ages. In that process, they said that no, Veda was a fiction. Where is Saraswati? Saraswati river doesn't exist. And we know that in the Rig Veda, scholars will bear me out. Saraswati has been mentioned several times. Someone says that more than 50 times. Of the 10 mandalas, in 9 mandalas, Saraswati, because even today in archaeology, when we have found the locations of the 7 major cities, 5 of them are located in Saraswati Basin. Whether it is Rakhigarhi, Dholavira, Lothal, Kalibangan, all these are in Saraswati. In Sindhu, there are only 2, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. But Saraswati doesn't exist. Saraswati has mentioned even in Mahabharata. Mahabharata, it mentions about Saraswati in Salya Parva. That when Mahabharata war was happening, elder brother of Sri Krishna, Balaram, who was not happy with this war, he said, no, I will not be with either side. And he went on a pilgrimage on holy places on the banks of Saraswati. Kalidas has written in his Kumar Sambhavam that Saraswati meets ocean near Somnath. Subsequent discovery, 1980 onward, when they're imagining through the space imagery, NASA's Landsat satellites, their images, and later our ISRO, they have conclusively proved how Saraswati originated and how it moved. Between Yamuna and Satluj, this river ran through. Nuclear physics, as a study of radioisotopes of hydrogen and oxygen, has established the time when Saraswati dried up. Approximately around, experts as usual may or may not agree, but general thinking is about 2,500 years before the Common Era. It dried up. First, it changed some its course. Yamuna and Satluj were tributary of Saraswati. Later, Yamuna became tributary of Ganga and Satluj to Sindhu. And the river dried. Tectonic shift, climate change, all these things happened. This Aryan invasion, Aryan came from outside. Aryan as a race, and Vedas are myth. Even in our literature, we say Saraswati is a mythical river. You know what is myth? A lie which is repeated many times becomes a myth. It's not a myth. It was a reality. Now today, scientifically it has been established through satellite imagery and through nuclear physics that Saraswati existed, and also approximate time when it dried up. Now in this civilization, this large civilization in the Sapta Sindhu, it gave rise to those thoughts, those wisdoms, those texts which became eternal. When Vedas gave us the light, that the entire creation is a family, the Creator having created the entire creation is present in every element of the creation. We are all one. Not only humans, the plants and animals, we are all part of the same. Integrally and organically connected. This revolutionary thought was revealed in the Rig Veda during that time. And by the way, the time of Mahabharata and Rig Veda also has been by and large established. Because we know that it has been now established that Rig Veda happened at least 2000 years before Mahabharata. And Mahabharata happened about 3100 years approximately. That is the general assessment. And all this has happened not through a speculation, through fixing the planetary position. So not planet, constellation. Planets keep changing. When the modern science, modern astronomy, modern with all these, we have been able to fix it. These are not fiction, these are not stories. As I was reading some of the works of E.V. Ramaswamy Naik. E.V. Ramaswamy says that Aryans were barbarians, they came and invaded, and they were all drunk, intoxicated, they were dancing and singing, and that song they imagined all these things that happened in Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are all intoxicated songs of these drunken barbarians. Europeans said, no, since there was no Saraswati, there is nothing. Now this, first of all, when I say decolonize, let us stop calling it Indus civilization. Can't we call it Saraswati Sindhu civilization? Is it not a fact? If it is a fact, then let us accept it, let us call it. In our own country, here in this very land, we have a Dravid ideology that believes in that Aryan and Dravidian separate races. Groundwork was done by Caldwell, Robert Caldwell, who wrote the book. Absolutely anyone with a critical eye will read it and will find it's all nonsense. Grammar of Dravidian languages. Dravidian languages, not only Tamil, all Dravidian. But over the time, rest of the Malayalam, Telugu, Kannada, they have moved away. They have no problem. Somehow here ideology is limited to here. They say no, we are a separate, linguistically a separate group. We have nothing to do with the rest. And then race, Dravid separate race, Aryan separate race. These lies have created a political ecosystem which is threatening the unity and integrity of our nation. The history and the truth of Saraswati Sindhu civilization has to come out in intellectual and public discourse. Intellectuals cannot be just, and our intellectuals have done a lot of harm, there is no doubt about it. Because even after independence, we know that after independence, intellectual space was captured by Marxist ideologues. And Marxist ideologues, they were very loyal to their patron saint, God, Karl Marx. And what did Karl Marx say? Karl Marx, he wrote in 1852, 20 essays he wrote in New York Daily Tribune, where he said, running theme of all his essays was, British Empire has two tasks in India. Total annihilation of India's social order. Because in India, people, they worship cows and monkeys. And collective is so powerful that it doesn't allow individual to grow fully. Because they believed in individual sovereignty. That is the basis of the Western political thought. Individual is sovereign, collective has no place. Collective is made out of individual through contract. That is a social contract theory. So, Karl Marx said, the British must perform two tasks in India. First, total annihilation of India's social order. Because they are all barbarians. They must be destroyed. And second task, to lay the foundation of Western material civilization. So if Marxist ideologues, and historians so-called, if they do that, nothing wrong in that, because they are only being loyal to what Marx said. Our own people, D.T. Kosambi, I wonder how he is called historian. He was everything. He was a mathematician, he was a doctor, medical doctor, he was all not. He wrote, he talked about all this, how dark was our past. And this has been carried forward by subsequent Marxist historians. This has found place in our textbook. Even earlier time, Dr. Tarachand, who was also an archaeologist, what he did? He came up with a thesis when he was in 1922 in Oxford, Oxford Queen's College. He came up with a thesis, influence of Islam on Indian culture, and there he says, Alvars, Nayanars, Sankaracharya, Ramanujacharya were all deeply influenced by Islam. I mean, preposterous. But Dr. Tarachand was advisor to the government of India in the initial decade of our independence. They are the people who shaped our curriculum, our text. For a very long time, we kept looking down upon our civilization. And as far as the Saraswati Sindhu civilization is concerned, Dravid ideologues are at pains to find out as much literature as possible. And that is what you find their commissioned retired bureaucrats writing books, how it is different. Their argument is that this civilization, now they use the word Indus civilization. Indus civilization was actually their civilization. Aryans, barbarians came, they attacked, and we moved south. The fact that no such conflict is mentioned in any of our ancient literature, neither in Tamil nor in Sanskrit. Both are the oldest literature in the world. Nothing is mentioned. Even subsequently, as late as, I'm not aware, I think experts would be able to throw better light. But I came across an article, a piece, a research paper in Harvard Medical Journal Cell, CELL, in as late as 1919. When they did this DNA study of the skeletons found in various parts, they found there is a homogeneity. There is nobody from outside. There was no mark of any injury on any of them. People, if they had come from outside, there could have been some differences in terms of genetics. It wasn't. Then they come up saying that in Veda they are talked about cows, but there is no imagery of cow. But the fact is you have plenty of bulls. Bulls imageries are there. Now can you think of bulls without cows? All they have been at pains to find out, to say that that civilization here, it is relevant to us. Europeans are now, they are doing away with the race theory and all, at least intellectually, and they are at pains to keep distance from that. And so they don't talk much about the race theory and Aryan theory and all. But here in our own state, there is a reigning ideology that believes and that has been churning out literature. Polemical literature, not well researched, I must say. Polemical literature is you have a viewpoint and you create a document to support that viewpoint. It's not an independent study. They have been at pains to come up that, look, we are different racially. We are different. It is a different civilization. And so much so that people here, the 3 generations of our people here, they have only learned in the textbook what they have been fed. It's a poison which has been infused in the mind of our people, that we are a separate. The fact is that the light that originated, it has spread over the whole land mass. And when they say Aryan, Aryan is defined In our literature, Yoga Vasist, it talks about who is an Aryan. And Yoga Vasist says, who is an Aryan? Kartabyam acharan kamam, akartabyam anacharan. Tishtati prakritacharo, yah sa arya iti asmrita. Kartabyam acharan kamam, akartabyam anacharan. Tishtati prakritacharo. Arya is one who is discreet, who has vivek. In Tamil we call vivegam, in Sanskrit vivekam. So he or she has a right conduct, conducts appropriately. Prakritacharo, time, deskal, time and space. Appropriate conduct. Right and wrong. The one has a discretion, who has a sense to discriminate right and wrong. And that is why, out of respect, people have been called Aryan. And here there are arguments to say that Ayya, when we use the word in Tamil, Ayya, is a Prakrit of Aryan. It says as respect. It's not a race. But this people, those who have created, and they have twisted, they have been fabricating it to serve their interest. I would urge, and I have expectation from this 2 days conference, that we should not just go into the nitty-gritty of what was the size of the jewelry and what is the pottery. But interpretation of past becomes relevant, and that is how it becomes relevant. It is relevant today because we have a future. It is a living because Vedas, what the light revealed, is the universal light. It is the light which in last year in the G20 when we had the presidency, when we say Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, it comes from that. The world is a family. Kutumbam, Yadu Mure, Yavarum Kelir, what we have said, it is all one. It is that light. That civilization which created a Rashtra, not a political state. And we know what is Rashtra. Rashtra comes in our Vedic, right from the Rig Veda. The Rashtra is Bhadram Ekshanta Rishya Swavida Tapo Diksham Upneseduragra Tato Rashtram Balmavajasha Jatam. When Vishwa Kalyanakari, those rishis, those who had thought the well-being of the whole world, those hard labor, those who were aware of the Atmagyan, Swavida. And what is Atmagyan? Mam Atma Sarva Bhuta Atma. My self is the self of all. We are all one family. This unique light that was revealed during this civilization, Saraswati Sindhu civilization. This legacy that we have is a living legacy that has shaped Bharat. Bharat was never, some people ask, tell me Mr. Governor, who was the ruler who ruled the whole country? My friend, Bharat was not defined by ruler. It's a unique country in the world, unique country. I challenge you, anyone, you give me an example. This country at no point of time was ruled by any one ruler. And yet, in all the parts of this country, you have places in the area of different kings. But that place belonged to the whole Bharat, not belong to them. Could Setupati say that Rameswaram belongs to him? No. Cannot. Saurashtra king could not say that Somanath belonged to him. Kasi did not belong to Kashi Naresh. All over, through hundreds and hundreds of such places located, which belong to the whole Bharat, it did not belong to that king. And people of every part of the country had equal right there. When people, more than 60 crore people went to Kumbh, can you imagine ever, in the past or even in the future, anybody who is a ruler of that place who is controlling, no, I will not allow anyone to come here take bath. Just not possible. This is Bharat, no other country in the world you have. So Bharat is not a political state, it is a Rashtra. That is why Rashtra is defined in the Veda, that light, the light that came from the Veda, which is spread around, which has shaped our thinking, towards ourselves, towards the nature. That is why, in every part of this country you go, traditionally people, they say, when they go and cut the tree, they do the prayer. I have need, so that is why I am cutting you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. It is only the modern thought, mercantile thought, that we have been destroying this. Our original, the Vedic teachings are that we are all part of the family. They are all divine. Our rivers are divine, our rocks are divine, our plants are divine, animals are divine, every being is divine. It's an expression of divinity. And today when the world is in crisis, when the world is fighting on the verge of the threshold of destroying itself, this light is needed. That is why at the time of independence, Rishi Aurobindo, he had said, now the time has come to take this light to the rest of the world. Because Bharat, this light came to this area, this Saraswati Sindhu civilization area. It did not come just for itself. It didn't come just even for Bharat. It came for the whole world. Because we must live in harmony. We must coexist together happily. So we have an obligation. Bharat has an obligation, and when today Bharat is rising, with a clear sense of a goal that we must be a fully developed country, we must be a samartha country, we must be a capable country. Because if you are weak, this knowledge was there with us for thousands of years, but people didn't listen to us. Until 10 years back, whenever India spoke, people didn't take us seriously. Today it is not the case. Today when Bharat speaks, the whole world listens. It listens because we are becoming more and more capable. We have the confidence. And that confidence that comes is confidence from the continuity, civilizational continuity. We are not people who have created ourselves since yesterday or since 1947. No. Minimum 7,000 years. Because if we say that the Vedas were 2,000 years before Mahabharata, and about 3,000 plus is before the Common Era, then obviously nearly 7,000 years minimum. It's a continuous civilization, a living civilization. And this civilization has to be rescued from the onslaught of vested interests who have tried to downgrade and downplay us. The country must rise, Bharat must rise and it is rising with a sense of selfhood, self-pride. And to restore that pride, this civilization is crucial. We have to debunk all that, all the violence that has been caused to this civilization. And we must do it right from using the term. We shouldn't be shy of calling it Saraswati Sindhu civilization. It is important to know about the details of it, but it is more important to interpret it in the context of today so that it leads our path to tomorrow, a better tomorrow. And that is what is needed today. And that is what would be the expectation from this 2 days seminar. I am sure scholars will raise the issue, will take it forward. Students will ask critical questions. Please do that. Make this a churning so that the nectar of truth comes out of it, so that our path is cleared. All the obstacles that are here and there, they are removed. It must have a purpose. It cannot be purposeless. And I am sure these 2 days it will serve the purpose. I have no doubt about it. I wish this conference very, very success, very, 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 very productive, fruitful. Thank you very much. Jai Bharat.